Hello everyone and welcome back to Angela's Craft Room again. Now today I wanted to show you how to colour these grapes with using a blender pen, Stampin' Up blender pen and your ink pads. Okay, so I will try and assemble the card as well. We'll just see how we go, but I mainly wanted to show you how to colour these and how easy it is to colour them with the blender pen. So we're going to get straight into it. Now I've already done one leaf, but it's okay. So I started using wild wasabi for the leaves, so we'll get stuck into the other leaf in a second, but I've stamped that with StazOn Jet Black. Now this isn't on watercolor paper, so you have to work, you know, not too quickly, but you don't want to go over and over it because we're not on watercolor, so it's not soaking water in. If you overwork an area when you're using the blender pens, it's going to lift your cardstock and it's not good. So all I do is just slightly tip my blender pen into it, and you can see I'm hardly touching it. Then I'm just going onto here, starting from the middle of the leaf, and I'm just doing like little flick actions outwards, and as obviously it's darker in the middle, when you see that you've hardly got any ink on the blender pen, like I have a little bit on there, but I can go from the outside of the tip of the leaves and just bring it in until I haven't got any ink left on that blender pen. And I'm barely touching that, and you can see how easy that ink is transferring to the leaf. You can always add a little bit of darkened shade afterwards, but mainly when you're using a blender pen and you're not using watercolor, obviously, because if you're using watercolor paper, Stampin' Up watercolor paper, you should be using the aqua painter from Stampin' Up, which has water in the barrel, and it doesn't matter how many times you go over the area because the water soaks in. But when using the blender pen, and I'm using this on shimmery white cardstock, which I've told you most probably a lot of times by now, I do prefer when I'm sponging or when I'm doing this sort of work, I prefer to use the shimmery white cardstock because I just feel that it works better than just the normal cardstock. That's just my personal preference. You might feel it makes no difference, so that's fine. It's just, I'm just showing you a tip. I have ladies and gents commenting and messaging me what they would like a tutorial on, and I've had a lot of questions about how they can colour using their Stampin' Up products. And there's just so many ways, but this is very easy, and I'm hardly touching that. I'm right on the tip of the outside leaf, and then I'm just bringing it in. And you can see that that's quite, I've done that leaf, it hasn't taken very long at all. And I'm not going to be too fussy today because otherwise the tutorial will go on and on. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and so I'll just have a look at that. So if you just wanted to add a little bit of highlight in the center, just start from that center and just do little flicks out. And then down. The artist has really helped us with this stamp set, and this is the Tuscan Vineyard stamp set, one of the new ones that they brought out in June the 1st, 2016 in the new Stampin' Up annual catalogue, and I just love it. As soon as I saw it, I had to have it. And where the artist has put those dark spots for us, that's where we want to highlight. So I'll just do a little bit of highlight on this one, and then we can start on the grapes. And you can see just how quick it is. Some ladies have said they find it hard, but I think the main problem, and I'm not even going to overwork that because otherwise my cardstock is going to start to lift. I think one of the main problems is people do press too hard, or they just overwork it. And that's how easy the leaves were done. And that's with wild wasabi. Then we're going to bring out some Wisteria Wonder. Now the Wisteria Wonder is going to be just what I start, so I've got a little bit of colour. Now to get that green off, you just, on your scrap paper, until there's no more colour on there. That's how easy it is. Now we're going to go into Wisteria Wonder, and you're just going to put a really light, hardly touching it again, we're just going over the grapes now, and we're just following where the artist has put most of his colour. And don't worry if you go over into the leaves. It is craft. Doesn't have to be perfect. And the ones that are quite round, I just tend to go round and just try and keep them in that shape. Just be careful when you're going to the edges, because you don't want to go out of those lines. So this is basically just to get some colour on, and then I'll bring in a deeper colour just to highlight the grapes. But you can see how easy that is to colour. So I hope this is going to help a lot of my ladies and gents out there to be a bit more confident, stepping outside your comfort zone. And if you're happy with it, that's all that matters. Don't fall into the trap of comparing yourself to other crafters, because we're all different and we all like different things. So as long as you're happy with what you've created, that's all that matters. So just putting this Wisteria Wonder down. And this is just such a wonderful stamp set because it's got what I call deep edgings, which is like the deep marks when you stamp it out, and it just makes it easy. But just take a little bit of care when you're doing the grapes that you try and keep in that circle. And once you've tapped your ink, your blender pen into your ink, you should be able to do at least one grape without re-inking. Like I'm doing 2 or 3 without re-inking because I'm just applying, and really I most probably could just do the Wisteria Wonder, but I think it's nice sometimes to have 2 colours, so that especially with something like the grapes, so that you can highlight. And when we start highlighting with the darker colour, what we're going to do is the grapes, some of the grapes sit underneath the other grapes. So we're going to highlight those areas with a darker colour. So we've only got a couple of grapes to go and we'll have our base colour down. That's just how easy it is. And as I say, you could just leave that like that if you wanted to. Another thing that you can add in the highlighted areas, you can use your Wink of Stella clear pen and just highlight some of the areas in that. And it does help if you do have a juicy ink pad. You don't want to be using one with your blender pen that needs re-inking. Now I'm just going to turn that round because it's got a really tiny grape down there and I just don't want to go outside the line. And that's basically how easy it is. That's the base colour. So I'm just going to rub that off to get my Wisteria Wonder off of there. And then we're going to bring in some Perfect Plum, which it's just a bit darker. And I'll just bring you in a bit. So it doesn't matter if you can't see my ink pad. Now I'm just going to do, I just hope that I stay in focus. So I'm just going to go and hardly touching that because you don't want a big blob. You just want a little bit of highlight. So you don't want to be, and where the, I can't express enough, where the artist has put his lines or her lines, you can start by putting some of this onto there, and then when you've hardly got any ink, just go back and very lightly go over that. So I'm just putting a few dobs where the artist lines are. Then I'm just going to go back and just go over that. And when you've done the Wisteria Wonder and you go back and do the darker colours, you can just see the difference. And you can see that if you just done the Wisteria Wonder, that it'd most probably just make your image look a bit flat. So you can see that by adding this, and as I say, you're hardly touching that ink pad. If you put too much on that ink pad, if you press too hard on that ink pad, you're just going to have too much colour when you first touch the grapes. So it's not taking very long at all to just do a bit of highlighting. I find it very therapeutic. So I'm just tapping onto my grid paper because I don't want it to be a huge, really dark colour coming out. And the more you do this, you'll just get so used to it. And one thing that will help you, if you can get hold of a Stampin' Up colour coach, that will help you a great deal too. It just tells you, I know Stampin' Up don't sell them anymore unfortunately, but it just tells you what colours go with what, which colours go with which ones, like as a colour combo. So it does make things a bit easy for you, because I know some of the ladies, they find it hard to what colours to use. So that's all there really is to that. So you could just leave it like that, but of course I can't. So I'll just clean off my brush, get that ink off of there, and just pop that straight back on, the lid back on. So those blender pens, they come in a pack of 3 too, if you're wanting to know that. Now I'm just going to get a little bit of Wisteria Wonder and just add a little bit of dimension to this piece to take away the starkness of the white. So I'm just dabbing that into my ink pad, and I'm just going to start by going down the sides. And you'll see why in a minute. It just takes away the whiteness on the shimmery white. Once you've done a bit down there and you've only got a little bit left on your sponge, just bring your sponge slightly over the edge of the cardstock, and you most probably can see that that's just coming over there now. But when you've hardly got any ink on there is the best time to do that. Now I've just got to do down this side. bringing it over. You don't have to do this, it's just an option. So I'd just like to give you ideals and a few tips. Now, it's got a little bit of, still some ink on there, so I'm just going to continue just to bring it over onto the white. So I'll just zoom out a bit for you because I'm most probably going out of focus a bit. Just when you're doing the corners, just really hold on to the right down near the corner with your other hand. Now what I'm going to do is just a bit of a circular motion, and just remember I've hardly got any Wisteria Wonder on my sponge. When I get to this stage, I don't want to add any more Wisteria Wonder. And you'll notice that I'm literally going over the whole image. I'm not even worried. I'm not even worried about going over the grapes because that's well and truly dry by now. And it just gives you a nice purple tinge, and doing it on the shimmery white, you've got that shimmer coming through and it's just so effective. And I'm really tempted to add a little bit more colour, but I don't want to have a lot of colour on my, so I'm not going to do it for the video. Pop that. So hopefully you can see, oops, sorry, you can see that it's just got a little bit of a tinge of purple around there, and it just takes off the starkness, but I do feel I need to just put a little bit more on. So just start on your grid paper and concentrate on your corners. And just go around the edge, don't go into the middle until you're really sure that there's hardly any ink left on there. And you can continue to play, but I won't because of the tutorial. So that's that. That was the main thing I wanted to do in the tutorial today, was just mainly show you how to use those blender pens with the ink pads. So I might make this as part one of the tutorial, and then we'll come back and we'll do a background of the leaves and we'll apply it to the card. So until then, happy crafting.